still saying these kids should like not be accepted because they don't really fit in either place? They can't just like...
I'm saying that the Boy Scouts have a standard. You must be a biological boy to be a Boy Scout. You have to be a boy to be a Boy Scout.
Where's that written though?
In the name Boy Scouts.
Who is this man named Ben Shapiro?
Then you actually just disagree with medical consensus within the
I
Western
disagree.
nation.
Yes, I disagree with the false medical consensus driven by politically driven, quote-unquote, doctors. If any doctor denies to me that there is a dichotomy between male and female, a sexual dichotomy between male and female, they're ignorant, and they are letting their politics get in the way of their science. Anybody who suggests to you that there is such a thing, for example, as a pregnant male is not a doctor, they are an activist.
How can he own every debate?
Honestly, Pierce, you've kind of been a bully on this issue because what you do, and I've seen it repeatedly on your show, I watch your show, is you tend to demonize people who differ from you politically by standing on the graves of the children of Sandy Hook.
How dare you?
I've seen you do it repeatedly, Pierce.
Does the answer lie in his personality? Is this the source of his superpowers?
Of what happened in Sandy Hook. And you have yet, I'd really like to hear your policy prescriptions for what we should do about guns. Because you say that you respect the Second Amendment, and I brought this here for you so that you can read it. It's the Constitution. And I would really like for you to explain to me what you would do about guns that would have prevented what happened in Sandy Hook.
Ben is known for being sharp, being able to defend his viewpoints without engaging in personal attacks.
Welcome. Today, I'm going to be taking what is a newfangled version of the Myers-Briggs test, a personality test, to determine what my career should be.
Architect, INTJ.
Everybody in the room is called it.
The 4-letter code he mentioned is referring to the 4 dichotomies that create the 16 personality types in the Myers-Briggs personality system. The dichotomies are introversion versus extroversion, intuition versus sensing, thinking versus feeling, and judging versus perceiving. I completely agree that if you go strictly off of these dichotomies, he is most definitely INTJ. This then brings up the biggest counterpoints to the MBTI. One thing is that the types are either this or that, but really this argument doesn't take the cognitive function into account. More notably is that the explanations of the types are purposely vague and generalized to resonate with a wide array of people. If you watch this video, you will see what I'm talking about. I agree the description fits Ben extremely well, but when you put the cognitive functions back in and stop being vague, you quickly realize that he is not this type. I made a video detailing the intricacies of the INTJ personality type. I will link it here. You will notice that Ben just doesn't fit this type, which I will explain here. In doing so, you will understand where his talents come from, where his weaknesses lie, and why his personality is so rare. We will start by showing some INTJs and see how Ben differs.
By the time Norton retires, I'll have made him a millionaire.
You ever catch on, though? He's gonna wind up in here wearing a number himself.
Now, Red, I thought you had a little more faith in me than that.
No, I know you're good, Andy, but all that paper leaves a trail. Now, anybody gets curious, FBI, IRS, whatever, it's gonna lead to somebody.
Sure it is, but not to me. And certainly not to the warden.
All right, who?
Randall Stevens.
Who?
The silent partner. He's the guilty one, Your Honor. The man with the bank accounts. That's where the filtering process starts. They trace anything, it's just gonna lead to him.
But who is he?
He's a phantom. He doesn't exist, except on paper.
Andy, you can't just make a person up.
Well, sure you can. If you know how the system works, where the cracks are. It's amazing what you can accomplish by mail. Mr. Stevens has a birth certificate, driver's license, social security number.
You're shitting me.
If they ever trace any of those accounts, they're going to wind up chasing a figment of my imagination.
So the INTJ uses introverted thinking to support extroverted thinking. Let's see how Ben uses introverted thinking.
Due process past the 14th Amendment has been equally distributed to all groups across America.
No, I didn't say that in practice it has. I said the concept of due process is dedicated to the proposition that people should be treated as individuals. Obviously, segregation and racism and criminal justice up until the Civil Rights Act would suggest that on a practical level it was not equally distributed, obviously.
How is that in opposition to critical race theory that teaches that these institutions have been used to prosecute certain groups differently than others have been prosecuted?
because that's not what critical race theory teaches. What critical race theory teaches is that supposedly colorblind institutions like due process of law are cover for racism as an institution. Due process of law is a problem because it is not because it is a good concept badly applied or improperly applied. It's because it is in and of itself a discriminatory concept. That's the critique. The critique is that due process of law, in and of itself, the idea of treating people individually ignores key components about human beings, namely how they are seen racially by other human beings, and thus due process of law is not enough to guarantee that people are treated equally or can be treated equally. I disagree. I think due process of law is an excellent guarantee, and straying away from that guarantee has been the problem with regard to due process of law, not the actual guarantee itself.
Your Honor, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm just a regular guy. I am not a flight risk, and this is my first alleged offense. And the prosecution has not presented one single piece of evidence against me. Now, in these circumstances, unless the state has obtained some new piece of information relating to my involvement in the matter in question, then I find it highly prejudicial, even constitutionally offensive, to keep me detained without bail. It's a slippery slope, Your Honor. Haven't we seen the result of such violations both internationally and domestically? Case in point would be Dave v. McDonough, docket number 041325.
I am actually inclined to agree with you, Mr. Shelton.
Your Honor, Mr. Shelton has agreed to give us a full confession.
Has he given it, Mr. Rice?
No, Your Honor.
Well, then, in my opinion, the state has failed to establish a compelling basis for its motion, and I will grant bail in the amount...
Thank you.
Excuse me?
No, I don't think I will excuse you. You see, this is what I'm talking about. You were about to let me go. Are you kidding me? This is why we're here in the first place. You think I don't remember who you are, lady?
I would tread carefully, Mr. Sheldon.
Well, how carefully should I tread? Because apparently, I just killed two people, and you were about to let me walk right out that door. How misguided are you? I feed you a couple of bullshit legal precedents, and there you go. You jump on it like a bitch and eat.
You're a transgender woman, and so you're a transgender woman, but to me, there is a big difference between a transgender woman and a biological woman, and if we're supposed to use these sort of generic pronouns to refer to men and women, then we ought to be using them at their most root level, which is the biological differences. I would address you by your name, typically. I mean, I would try to avoid specifically offending you by using a pronoun that you don't like, but I also am not going to bow to the sort of social convention now that I'm supposed to use a pronoun of people's choosing rather than a pronoun that accurately describes the truth.
It's like, okay, there's room to be nice. Okay, there's room for everyone to be nice, but there's also, like, that's not the best argument for this.
Yeah.
And I think that...
And by the way, there are ways for me to be nice within my own purview, meaning that, as I said before, if you and I were talking, I would just refer to you as Blair all the time, right? In order to to avoid this controversy, because it would be more fun to have dinner with you where we were just discussing topics as opposed to fighting about pronouns. You are very affectionate with people you care about. Shockingly, strongly agree. I have children, guys. I don't like you, but I like my kids. You often find it difficult to relate to people who let their emotions guide them. Agree. You often have a hard time understanding other people's feelings. Agree. I kind of do understand other people's feelings. I just think they're stupid. So I'll actually disagree with that. Like, I fully understand my wife's feelings, and I fully understand my kids' feelings, and so I'm very empathetic with people that I care about. But if your feelings are unjustified, I can understand them, but that does not mean that I agree with them or think that they should be the basis for decision making. You find it easy to empathize with the person who has gone through something you never have. I know everyone wants me to say disagree here, but the truth is that I actually think that the mark of thinking is being able to empathize with an experience you've never had. I mean, that's what human rationality is about.
Now that we know Ben is IXTP, is intuiting or sensing the creative function. Either function would have to be extroverted. So extroverted sensing would ground him in reality, or extroverted intuition would make him see many possibilities, making him quite the visionary.
You see yourself as more of a realist than a visionary. I'll actually agree with that. I'll agree with that.
As an ISTP, he would value NI as the mobilizing function. NI is basically a sixth sense that knows exactly what will happen or how to handle something. Bender, the kid in the jean jacket, uses this function in this scene.
The door's way too heavy, sir. That's very clever, sir. But what if there's a fire? I think violating fire codes and endangering the lives of children would be unwise at this juncture in your career, sir.
All right, what are you doing with this? What are you doing with it? Get this out of here, for God's sake. What's the matter with you?
We see this in Ben's debates, as he always has very quick predictions on how to make arguments. So much so, I would argue, it outshines his creative SE function, which is incredibly rare.
How come you claim to be 5'9" even though you're like 5'5"?
I don't know, how tall are you? You're 5'9"?
I'm actually 5'9".
Okay, come over here, let's see.
He is so good and quick with his introverted intuition that his extroverted sensing is muted. It does show up though, mostly with his confidence when speaking. Also, he can creatively use introverted sensing, the demonstrative function, which is signals your gut sends about things. You might say, I just have a gut feeling about something. That is your body saying, I feel satiated by this. In this clip, he speaks of government taxing dollars, and each time he must decide if it seems correct to use the tax concept. He uses his gut to say it is over and over until the climax, when he alludes to extroverted sensing by saying people may disavow.
By the time you actually receive your income in this country, the income's been taxed about 7 different ways. Right? You're getting taxed through the corporation, then it's passed on to you as salary, which is taxed. If you invest it in the stock market and then you sell your stock, that is taxed as capital gains tax. When you die, the government taxes that as well. So how many times can you tax the same dollar before people begin to disinvest?
I did say that we will talk about his weaknesses, but actually the lack of competence in these areas can also be seen as a strength. It is the super id block, and we already talked about the lack of empathy, which is also why he never gets emotionally charged and simply sticks to facts. His vulnerable function is extroverted intuition. In other words, he doesn't like to pontificate about possibilities. He needs facts or he can't speak on situations. He gets around it by assuming people are bringing factual information usually. When given too little information, he usually says he could probably come up with different scenarios but never does.
As a member of student government, do you think that he should be held accountable to those beliefs?
I mean, it depends who's holding him accountable. In other words, was he, you'll have to tell me the story. Was he dumped by the school from his position in the student senate, or did people just not elect him in the future?
Yeah, it was a vote of no confidence from the student government.
I mean, I can say whether I disagree or agree with that, but I can also say that if a student government votes that they don't want somebody else in student government because of something that they've said politically, then I can think that they are being censorious. I'm not sure that that counts as formal cancel culture in the sense that they're being canceled for something that is outside the purview of which they're normally speaking. But I can still think that the people who are doing it are jackasses. I don't know what he said. So both of those things can be true at once. Sometimes accountability culture, as it's called, can also be misused. It's not like a hard divide between accountability culture is good and cancel culture is universally bad. Right? I could probably think of hypothetical scenarios where that's not true.
Down your personality in a variety of ways. Apparently there are 4 categories. There are analysts, diplomats, sentinels, and explorers, like those colonialist bastards who took over the Western Hemisphere. See results. Okay, let's see, guys.
The virtuoso ISTP from the explorer category.
Okay, everybody in the room is like, called it.
If you want to know more about the INTJ personality, go ahead and watch this video right here. Otherwise, as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, mahalo.